Coming up on CU at USC, we have two very special guests, the founders of Everytable, a healthy and affordable restaurant option. Stay tuned. Welcome to another episode of CU at USC. I'm your Thursday night host, Lauren Day, and tonight we have the founders of Everytable, a healthy and affordable restaurant right here near campus, Sam Polk and David Foster. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thanks for having us.
So I want to just start off, Everytable. What makes it so unique compared to other restaurants?
I think that one of the things that makes it unique is that we're really trying to make it accessible and affordable for everyone. So, most restaurants have kind of a one-size-fits-all approach where they've got a standard price point and a standard offering, and we're trying to really buck the trend there and be unique in terms of pricing it relative to the affordability for where we're located. So in the first location near USC, that's about $4 per capita income is $13,000 a year. And downtown, where you have more of a working population, it'll be about double that. So still attractively priced at $7.95 compared to Whole Foods, but priced double what we're doing down here.
Mm-hmm. Now, you guys have an interesting background. Sam, you went to Columbia. We were talking about that just a few minutes ago. When you guys were in college, what were your career goals at the time?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when I was in college, I basically wanted to be rich and successful, and I didn't really care what that looked like, but I wanted to do something that basically got me on the front page of the Wall Street Journal or Fortune or something like that. So I went to Wall Street, and until I was 30 years old, I was a hedge fund trader. And I think the thing I'd like to say about that is that, I basically sort of came to grapple with this idea that this sort of definition of success that had been sort of imprinted on me from a young age, it first of all, it didn't sort of make me happy, but even more than that, I just think it's so limited. I think that human beings have this, desire for success and recognition, but also this deep desire to help people and connect. And I wanted to do something that allowed me to do both.
Now, were you a business major in college?
I had a really rocky time in college. I was an economics major until I got kicked out of Columbia. And then when I finally made my way back into it, I was basically I decided to major in English because that was the only thing I liked to do. I just like to read books. And I was like, well, if I'm going to make it through college, I'm just going to read, basically.
Well, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
Do something that you like. David, what about you?
Yeah, and in terms of my career choice, it was similar to Sam. It was all about trying to make money. And I studied business, finance, and accounting, and I decided I wanted to try and go into investment banking. And I didn't know what investment banking was until probably my third week of the internship between junior and senior year. I just knew that you get paid a lot of money in investment banking. And it didn't take me long after that to realize that making a lot of money is not really going to fill you up in terms of making you satisfied, not just with your work, but with life in general. So it took me a while to really figure out how to pivot out of that finance track. And it was a number of years, but that's sort of what led us to work together, was realizing that making a lot of money is a narrow pursuit, and that I wanted something more in terms of my career and my life, to do something that was more beneficial.
Yeah, I mean, clearly it sounds like you both kind of had that same mindset, that you weren't, truly happy with your careers at the time. What was it about just striving to be rich and, famous even?
I mean, for me, I think it was this idea that it was sort of all about me in some sense. Everything that I was trying to do was make money for myself, get recognition for myself. And at the end of the day, that I guess felt really lonely and sort of stifling. And some of the stuff that we're doing now, it just feels like, there is ambition as a part of it, and this company will be profitable and we'll make some money off of it. But it really is like, there's something that's so deeply fulfilling about sort of doing work for people that need help, but also like for something that I sort of believe is right, that is like bigger than just me. It's something I believe in, and yeah, I wouldn't trade that for anything.
So Sam, you started a nonprofit. What moment in your life did you decide, okay, I'm gonna no longer work for Wall Street and I want to do something different?
So there was this one moment I was in it was during the crash of 08 and 09, and I was in a meeting with one of my billionaire bosses and several other traders, and we were talking about the hedge fund regulations being talked about in Congress, and everybody in the room thought it was a terrible idea because it was bad for our business. But I was starting to think, I'd seen so much of what was happening during the crash and how badly people were getting hurt, and I knew that our industry was in some sense responsible. And so I sort of said that in the meeting. I was like, well, don't these make sense for the system as a whole? And it was like this terrible moment. Like everybody had turned off like the music, it was like,
yeah.
And then my boss like looked at me and he was like, I don't have the brain capacity to think about the system as a whole. I can only think about what's good for us and our business. And it wasn't so much that I judged him as that like I recognized myself in that. And I was like, oh, that's what this is all about. This is all about all of us using whatever privilege and talents and skills that we've both been lucky enough to either been born with parents to support or in families to support, or even if it's like innate skill, that still is like a gift, It's not so much an achievement. And we're all just using that to compete with each other to sort of get stuff for ourselves.
Yeah.
And I in that moment, I recognized that like that guy was my definition of success. He was a billionaire hedge fund manager. And I was like, oh, I don't want to be that.
Yeah. So what'd you do?
Well, basically, like I started wrestling with myself, and it wasn't, it sort of sounds like, oh, poor guy, whether to quit your job or not. But for me, it was like the hardest thing ever, because my whole life I'd been working for this moment, and, it was literally like walking away from millions of dollars, but also like a future of just like, this is what success looks like in this country. You're right on the precipice of it. And so, it was like this year of like talking with people and grappling with myself and going back and forth. And then I eventually I basically picked a fight with my boss, who I really disliked, and used that to basically like walk away in a huff and leave Wall Street.
Yeah. David, was it kind of a similar experience for you? Was it
Probably
easy for you to walk away, or?
It definitely wasn't easy. I think it was different in the sense that I knew that at some point I was going to leave finance world. I didn't know exactly when. When I moved to LA and was working for a private equity firm out here, I thought I'm going to do that for 2 years and then I'm going to move home to Boulder and figure it out. And then I think one of the challenges, if you start down this path coming out of college and say, I'm going to go into a job that pays me a lot of money for a little bit and then I'm going to find something else, you realize you just get stuck on this treadmill. Mm-hmm. So it was 2 years, and then it was a third year, and then it was a fourth year. And luckily for me, the company I was working for, they had a policy where if you wanted to stay forever, you had to go back to business school. And I knew I didn't want to go back to business school. So there was sort of a natural jumping off point where I said, I'm not going to do that and continue down this path. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I went and I traveled for 6 months with some friends, and I came back to LA and basically just had a clean slate. And from there, where you're not saying, should I leave this job and this money and this lifestyle, but making no money and having a lot of flexibility, it gives you sort of a fresh perspective to be able to look at new opportunities. And that's how I ended up volunteering for grocery ships and ended up working with Sam on Everytable.
Yeah, and I think that's so hard for college students because we're all kind of almost like programmed and taught that like the end goal is to be making a lot of money. What's your advice for college students?
Well, I mean, the first thing for me is like I want to acknowledge that it is like a hard moment. It's like, you're stepping out for the first time, like off the precipice of safety that school sort of represents. And at least for me, like I had no idea about whether I could do these things and whether I could be successful. And so this idea of like, and there's something like so safe about these like big prestigious corporations or big career paths, because you're like, oh, well, at least I know that I'm sort of using all the advantages or the position I'm in to sort of go in that direction. And, you know, I think the advice that I would give is sort of like really about perspective. And it's easy to say. I know it is easy to say, but like, you know, you're going to be graduating from one of the greatest, you know, institutions in the world, in the richest country in the world. And then of all the people in the world, you basically have the least chance of starving, of becoming destitute, of anything like that. So even though like you may feel like you don't know whether you're going to be able to hack it, you're going to be able to hack it. Like you know, if you just go to talk to USC alumni, they've all found their way in some way. They've all sort of made enough money to all those things. And it's really this like, you know, when I was in college, it felt like life was sort of like infinite, but it's not. It's really brief, and you have this like little tiny chance to do something with your life that, you know, you'll look back on and be really proud of. So I say go for it.
Same thing for you?
I think similar, but I sort of would take the other side of the coin on just the last part, where I feel like, yeah, life is sort of short in the bigger picture, but we all have really, really long careers, and you don't have to put so much pressure on yourself to figure it out when you're 20 years old. You know, where am I going to go to college? What am I going to study? What job am I going to get? You're trying to make all these life decisions when at least I was really unequipped to do that. And I think just taking the pressure off and saying, I don't need to figure it out all right now. I'm 20. I've got multiple decades where I can have a career and make changes and pivot back and forth. I think that's kind of step one. And I think step two is, depending on the circumstance, if you've got a passion, if you feel like, I know I want to be in television, you're very lucky, and you should just, you know, keep running down that path. And if you don't, try not to let money be the guide that's pulling you into something. If you want to go work in investment banking because you want to gain some financial skills, I think that's a reasonable, you know, decision. But don't go down a path just because you see dollar signs, because that's going to leave you disappointed pretty quickly.
That's good advice. And speaking of changes, Sam, you started a nonprofit, Grocery Ships. Tell me a little bit about that just briefly.
So Grocery Ships basically works at the intersection of poverty and food-related health issues like obesity and diabetes. And basically the reason for being is there is this thing called food deserts, which is neighborhoods, usually low-income neighborhoods, where there's very little access to fresh food. And Grocery Ships is a program that helps parents living in food deserts get themselves and their families healthy through nutrition education, healthy cooking skills, fresh produce. But even more importantly, it's done in the context of a support group. So there's a lot of time for these moms basically to share about all the other things that sort of go into healthy eating that are often unaddressed, things like stress and depression and emotional eating and addiction and childhood trauma, stuff like that. So Grocery Ships is a nonprofit that this year will work with 200 to 300 parents who really want to take their family's health back into their own hands. And
that's kind of how you guys came together, right?
Yeah, David, you know, Grocery Ships has these graduations where these moms who have, you know, gone through this 6-month program share about their experiences, and they're really beautiful because, you know, what happens in these groups is that these moms forge these like tight bonds of friendship and emotional support, and so when they talk about it, people invariably cry. Unfortunately, it was a good graduation, and David was inspired, and the rest is history.
We're working together.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, we have to take a quick commercial break, but after the break, we're going to dive into Everytable, and I want to know all the details about how you guys make it happen. So
Cool.
Be sure to stay tuned. Coming up, we're going to talk more about Everytable. Welcome back to See You at USC. I'm here with Sam Polk and David Foster, the founders of Everytable. Thank you again for being here tonight.
Thank you.
So we were talking about how you guys got together. But how did you think of the idea for Everytable?
I mean, you thought of it. I think you should go for it.
So we were working together at Grocery Ship. So that's the nonprofit that Sam founded that's working on this issue of food inequality and food related health issues that disproportionately affect lower income families. And we were bringing in fresh produce and had a nutrition curriculum and healthy cooking classes in the support group structure, which is still going on and is still great. And we also felt like bringing in fresh produce to families and then saying, all right, go ahead and cook your meal every night of the week if you want to eat healthy, was sort of a double standard. And we heard that from the families too. So we thought, wouldn't it be great rather than say, here's some fresh ingredients, here's a healthy ingredients, here's a healthy meal, and make that affordable and convenient so that you can really automate this process of eating healthy for individuals and their families who oftentimes have multiple jobs and are a single parent, and they just don't have the resources that a lot of other people on the west side of LA do. So let's try and cut to the finish line of healthy eating and make it accessible.
Now, are there other restaurants that people can go to that serve healthy food, but it is affordable? Does that exist?
There are some that are trying. Local's a great example down in Watts. They're definitely trying to do something similar. We think that Everytable is somewhat unique in terms of both the price point and the nutritional standards that we've set for ourselves. So we do see ourselves as sort of standing alone, at least in the LA market.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that David didn't talk about is that the structure of the business has been designed to take all the sort of excess costs of the restaurant/food business and pass those on in the form of savings to customers. And so how it basically works is all the food is made fresh every day, but at a central kitchen, and then at that kitchen packaged into grab-and-go containers. And that sounds simple, and it is, but it's also the key economic insight, which is that if the food is then packaged, so it's made just hours before, but then you can open storefronts that, if you think about like a Chipotle, for example, it's going to be 2,500 square feet of space and 10 employees and a fully built out kitchen, and all that is really expensive. But our storefronts are 600 square feet and have 2 employees because they don't need to do the pinto or black beans, and refrigerated display cases instead of a fully built out kitchen. And that means that we can have a single kitchen supporting 20, 30, 40 stores. So all of that is that's what we wanted to figure, because we knew, the average price that people spend on a meal when you're cooking at home is $4. So we were like, why is it that you can cook a meal for $4 at home, but when you order a meal out, it's $15? Yeah. That's so much cost. Can we take that out? And I think our model really does a good job of that.
So, but it's all pre-made. Is that where it's easy to save money?
Yeah, but I do want to say pre-made, but in the way that it's literally made a few hours before. So it's not, you go to Trader Joe's, for example, and you look at the expiration date, it's 4 days ago, you're sort of a little nervous. This is just fresh, but because it's made from that central kitchen and put in those to-go containers, it's so inexpensive.
So if I go to Everytable, how much am I going to spend to get a hot meal?
Well, so that's a great question, and it depends. So if you go to the store that's in South LA, which is where per capita income is $13,000 a year, you'll spend $395 on a cold meal and $450 on a hot meal. But if you go to a more affluent neighborhood, like downtown will be our second location, then we're going to open in Santa Monica. At those stores, you'll be able to get the same exact food for $8. And I think the beauty of that is it is twice as much for those folks in Santa Monica, but it's also significantly cheaper than anything that they're used to. So they get the option of, buying a less expensive meal that, in my opinion, tastes better than anything out there. And they know that their purchase is going towards, supporting this company that's really, believes that healthy food is a human right and making that a reality in the world.
Speaking about the food that you say is better than the other options out there, what can someone get if they walk into Everytable?
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons I say this, and I'm really proud of it, is that we hired these two chefs. One of them was at 37, became the head chef at Le Cirque in New York, which is one of the all-time greatest restaurants in the world. And, so we basically took this incredibly skilled artist, basically, and then we went to all the families in South LA that we were working with through grocery ships and said, what would you like to eat? Because we didn't want to come in and bring a kale and wheatgrass salad if nobody was going to eat it. And so what eventually came out of that was this menu that celebrates the cultures and cuisines of Los Angeles. So, for example, there's a Jamaican jerk chicken with coconut beans and rice and plantains, or a Puebla chicken tinga with chayote peppers and black beans. And these are they will blow you away at how we don't even talk in the store about how healthy they are, just because the food stands on its own. It's only, weeks later when all of a sudden your belt is fitting really well and you're like, oh wow, this is this is really great.
Can it help you to lose weight by eating
I mean, I don't want to be out there making claims, but I'll tell you this, we designed this menu so that if you ate every single meal there, that you would be basically in perfect health. And that's,
wow.
There's almost no added sugar, no processed carbs. It's all whole food, real food, nothing fried, but all incredibly delicious.
So how involved are you in terms of picking the food and being there at the storefront?
Yeah, so the process of developing the menu was incredibly collaborative between us and the culinary team and some other folks that are on the team that aren't here with us right now. So we really leaned on the chefs and their experience and their creativity to develop the menu, but it was very iterative in terms of tasting and vetting the nutritionals and the cost and making sure that everything fit into the constraints of our model to make sure that it was healthy and affordable for people that are not making a lot of money. And then as far as the operational stuff, we kind of float around between the kitchen and the store and looking at new stores and working on brand and PR and lots of other stuff that's sort of behind the scenes that's trying to look at growth for the future. So we're logging a lot of miles in our cars going all over town, but we try to touch each part of the operation as much as possible.
Now, you just mentioned that, and Sam, you did as well, that you guys are planning to expand to downtown Santa Monica. In 10 years, where do you hope Everytable is?
Ooh. I mean, for me, I really do think that this is a business that can eradicate food deserts. So for one, I want to have an Everytable in every sort of food desert in the country. But I also think that, this is a country that's facing 50% obesity and this massive health crisis. And I do think that we have a solution that's delicious but affordable for everyone and incredibly healthy, and that it could be everywhere.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I do want to ask you, earlier we were talking about how you guys left your Wall Street jobs and investment banking because you weren't completely happy, even though it was making good money. What's your advice to college students that want to do good, want to help other people, but still want to put food on the table and make a profit?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is that I think that the world has given us this sort of false choice between you can only make money or you can only do good. And you don't have to go build, huts in, a foreign country and live on nothing. There's things that you can do that allow you to sort of combine your ambitions for money and success, but with basically, I think the key for me is work that you care about, that you feel emotionally invested in, you're doing something that you're about, that you believe in, and I think there's a lot of opportunities like that out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's good to shoot for, and I think I heard from my family both, get a job and follow your passion, and it's difficult, particularly early in your career, to combine both. So I think starting out, making sure that whatever you're doing, you're building some skills that you can apply to something down the road. And at a minimum, you're working with people that you don't mind being around 8 hours a day. And then try and be patient and increasingly work on stuff that is really important to you. And if you can do that sooner rather than later, that's great. And keep reflecting and trying to make sure that the work you're doing is solving some important problem over time, not just enriching yourself or your company or your peers.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like your previous careers helps you in terms of starting up Everytable?
Yeah, I mean, it helps us with network and credibility and also understanding financial stuff. So definitely.
Yeah, I'm basically applying the same skill set that I had in private equity world to this problem. So it's very portable between what I was doing then and now. It's just attacking something that's new and fresh.
What has been the response so far in terms of your customers? I know you guys just opened up a few months ago.
Yeah, I mean, we're selling sort of way above forecasts, and people are really excited and buying. One of the things that we're sort of really excited to see is that people don't just buy one meal; they'll buy 10 meals for the rest of the week, and that's what we really wanted, was this like solution where you could really do your food shopping for the week and never have to sort of prepare anything and still eat food made by the best chefs in the country. So people are loving it so far.
Well, unfortunately, we're running out of time, but I do want to ask you one fun question. If a food that's on your menu could represent who you guys are, what would it be?
I guess I can't say jerk chicken, right?
I'll go with the pozole because it's a little spicy, and you also have to add some components, so there's kind of a lot going on there.
Okay, mix of everything.
Yep.
Yeah,
And then what
I guess I'd say the barbecue picnic bowl because it's really sort of like all over the place, and it really works well together.
That's awesome. Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm definitely going to check it out and probably start buying my meals there because that's
awesome.
Way cheaper than what I'm paying now.
For sure.
Thank you.
Thank you guys again. Be sure to tune in every weeknight right here on Trojan Vision for more episodes of See You at USC. Good night.
You're watching Trojan Vision. For more of your favorite shows, check us out at trojanvision.com and like us on Facebook.